So we have here Mr. Russell Copeman joining us again this evening. Thank you for being here. He is our DG. So I'll let you go ahead there.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just to introduce myself again, Russell Copeman, Interim Director General of the English Montreal School Board, and I'm delighted to sort of introduce and do the presentation, or at least introduce the presentation of the annual report of the EMSB 2019-2020 annual report. We have a number of commissioners, I believe, who have joined us. I had a list of commissioners who intended. I haven't checked your participants, but it was my understanding we were to be joined by Chairman Ortona and Vice Chairman Canavino, by Commissioners Mercuri, Pietrangelo, Bentrovato, Fabian, DeVito, Corsi, Speranza, Taton, Mughal, and Commissioner Israel. And if they're here with us, I want to welcome them as well. And a significant number of the administrative team of the English Montreal School Board. Again, I have a list that was prepared this afternoon, and I hope these people are in fact with us tonight. Assistant Directors General Alfonsi and Zuem, Secretary General Nathalie Louisière, Director of Ed Services Anna Sanalitro, Director of Human Resources Ann Watson, Director of Student Services Julie René de Cotteret, Pella Nicolatopoulos, Sector Director for Elementary School, Tracy Mangal, who's a consultant in Ed Services, who will actually present the Commitment to Success program in the annual report, and Mike Cohen, our Media and Communications Consultant. And I apologize in advance if I've missed any commissioner or member of the administrative team. Alors, je vous souhaite également un bonsoir. This is a first presentation of an annual report for a school board under a province-wide curfew. And so I would normally have been at the office, but I'm at home, and so you get that sort of vaguely, it looks like I'm being interrogated by the FBI with this lighting, but that's what happens. We needed to avoid the curfew, so I think everybody is in fact at home this evening. Article 220 of the Education Act states that every school board shall prepare an annual report giving the population in its territory an account of the implementation of its Commitment to Success plan and the results obtained, measured against the objectives and targets it contains. And so that is the significant portion of the annual report. The annual report was adopted by the Council of Commissioners on December 16th, and I remind you, it's for the 2019-2020 school year, fiscal year, in fact, so it's last year. And a public notice was given advising the general population that there would be this presentation tonight. I want to thank Michael Cohen and his team for putting together the report, and thank the administrative team for their involvement in providing the information required. I can say that it's a wonderful report. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. So I claim no credit whatsoever. It was done, well prepared well before I arrived as Interim Director General, and adopted by the board on the 16th. And so the team in Ed Services will present the implementation of the board's Commitment to Success plan, the results, and if the targets were met. And the directors will be available to answer any other questions about the annual report, the directors who I mentioned. And perhaps without further ado, if Anna Sanalitro, Director of Ed Services, would introduce Tracy Mangal, and we'll get right to the content of the Commitment to Success plan.
Thank you, Russell. Tracy is here this evening to present to you our educational project and the goals, and to determine how well we've done over the course, despite the pandemic and everything else that has been going on. So without further ado, I'm going to allow Tracy to take over the screen and to present the PowerPoint and the project.
Good evening. It's really nice to see everyone, although we're all in little boxes this time. I hope by now you know me. This is the third time that I've been present for this presentation. And so I'm happy to share with you some of the results of last year. As you know, COVID did interrupt our operations around March, and they did cancel, the ministry did cancel the exam. So many places where we would have very specific results, we don't have specific results. But for what we have, I'm able to report on. I have plenty of paper here. This is my little castle. And I was hoping to present to you first, and then afterwards take questions. And if there's something that comes up and I'm not able to find it, I will ensure that the answers are sent to Bridget shortly. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen. This report can be found on our website, and it's available for download, and you can get the specifics. What I did was I just put together some of the highlights. So, as mentioned, in July 2018, the English Montreal School Board's Commitment to Success Plan was approved by the Ministère de l'Éducation et l'Enseignement Supérieur. At the time, it was the MEES. This plan describes what the school board intends to do to ensure the educational success of all its students, young people, and adults, and the efforts that will be necessary to achieve it. It creates a mobilization around student-centered goals and objectives.
If I may, sorry to interrupt, but we don't see your screen, Tracy, or certainly I don't.
Oh, Bridget, can you see my screen? Oh, hold on,
we can't see
sorry.
your screen right now.
Give me a second. I don't think I'm sharing the right box. Okay, let's try again.
Yep.
Yeah, better? Okay, there we go.
Yep.
That was the first slide. Okay. Great. So as mentioned, Article 220 of the Education Act states that we will make an annual report every year, and we will inform about the objectives and the targets and report to you the results. Now I can't move forward. I'm just trying to move that bar.
It's okay, Tracy. We see the whole screen.
Yeah, it's covering the result though, huh?
No.
No?
For you, yes, but for us.
Okay, good to know. So the first objective is about graduation and qualification. The goal that was set was that 85% of students under the age of 20 would obtain a first diploma by 2030, and 90% of students overall would obtain that first diploma or qualification. When we began, our baseline was 88.6, and our current results, meaning the last year results, was 92.5. So we have achieved the target. You might note there that we're unable to report on the subject-specific results concerning objective 1.1 to 1.4 because of the pandemic and the cancellation of exams. The second objective is about equity. So I will be presenting to you our efforts towards reducing the gap in success rates between regular students and students with special needs. The gap in success rates between advantaged or intermediary schools and disadvantaged schools, and the gap in success rates between boys and girls. The MEES follows first-generation immigrant students, but we don't have, it's a very, very small portion of our population, so we do not track that one. Okay. So the objective is to reduce the gap in success rates between regular students and students with special needs from 28.1 in 2016 to 23.1 by 2022. Our most current result, our gap is closing. So you can see that it's going down and we are at 20.5. The target has been achieved. Moving on to objective 2.2, to reduce the gap in success rates of students in schools with an IMSD decile ranking of 1 to 7 and in schools with an IMSD decile ranking of 8 to 10 from 13.8 in 2016 to 10% by 2022. So this is based on the indice milieu de socio-economique. It's a ranking that is given to every school and it's done according to the postal code. And so that ranking is assigned to the schools, and then the government sorts it out. We have advantaged schools and we have disadvantaged schools, and we're looking to reduce the gap in success rates between the two. You'll see that we've gone from 13.0 to 7.2, and this is much lower than our intended 10% target, and we will continue to monitor that. Okay, 2.3, to reduce this gap in success rates between male students and female students from 8.2 in 2016 to 6.2 by 2022. You'll see here, male students have continued to achieve. They are slightly higher than they were last year. We went from 90.1 to 90.6, and it has closed our gap by about 0.5. So we are at 4.2, and this is in line with our target. We're actually below our target. The MEAS had an objective for early intervention, and it really deals with students before they reach grade 1. And so it's about finding the vulnerability factors that affect them before that time period. This is not something that we're going to be monitoring because it's more the responsibility of the Ministère de la Famille. For language proficiency, we tend to monitor everything to do with French and English for elementary and for the high school leaving exams. Unfortunately, because of the cancellation of exams, we were unable to report on what our usual achievements are in this area. So I can only give you the graduation qualification rate overall. I can't give you anything about the subject specifics, unfortunately. Objective 5 is related to adult literacy in the community. And this is measured with a test called the PIOC. The EMSB doesn't have this objective because it's very hard for us to take care of the population at large. We have a group of adult students who come to us, but we can't really set a goal with that group in mind. So we do not have an objective for this one. Okay. The next one is about late entry into school. To reduce to 10% the proportion of students starting public secondary school at age 13 or older by 2030. For us, we wanted to bring that down to 4.5. And you can see there's been a slight increase. We went from 5.0 to 5.8. Because I only have 1 year of data available, I would like to see what happens next year to see if this is a trend or if this is just a situation for now. So the target will be monitored. The MEAS asks us to report on the condition of our school buildings. So our target or our objective was to reduce the facility condition index of EMSB buildings from 35% in 2016 to 20% by 2022. You can see the ratings as the years go by. So we went from 26.37 to 27.15. If you have any questions about this, we're going to be passing that to material resources to answer. I won't be able to speak to that. I'm only academic. There are some additional objectives that are in our commitment to success plan. We chose to keep all of the objectives about school climate. So that is bullying, looking at perceptions of school safety and anxiety among students. Unfortunately, because of the interruption of the year, some of these surveys were not administered. So we don't have uniform results to report on for last year. In addition to looking at school climate goals, the EMSB also chose to pursue a goal for well-being for all, including employees. So the objective was to establish an action plan dealing with staff mental health and well-being during the 2019-2020 academic year. The board developed tools to address the identified areas of improvement from the total health survey, and that was administered the year before. An action plan has been developed, providing resources to employees to improve their mental health and wellness. Online seminars and webinars were researched and offered to employees. Topics included mental health and wellness, emotional well-being, building resilience, and coping with overcoming workplace stress. Additional materials are forthcoming. Due to COVID-19, information will only be conveyed in a virtual format for now. And the last additional objective that we have to report on is the physical activity. We wanted to increase the number of elementary schools who would implement the additional 60 minutes per day of physical activity for their students. So in 1920, we were able to bring on 7 more elementary schools, and the objective of the initiative remained consistent. We wanted to continue increasing opportunities for students to be physically active throughout the school day and promote the use of physical activity to support learning and overall student success. So usually I'd be able to tell you how we did in math and in science and in history. Unfortunately, this year we don't have that available, but I'm available here to take any questions that you have about the data that we've presented tonight.
Thank you, Tracy.
I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Serena, you want to call the people that have questions?
First person is Catherine Karakakis.
Hi, so congratulations on the excellent results. I'm a very proud parent of the EMSB. I love the school very much. I've said it many times, congratulations. But I want to ask a question that I ask every year when this is presented, because I'm not understanding something. So maybe you can explain it to me, okay? When we put measures in place, right? So we'll say, like, I remember the first 2 slides was students received a diploma, okay? And we have an amount. I don't remember the amount. Let's say we said we wanted 90% of the students to, but why do we aim for 90 and why do we not aim for 100? Because I understand that these are numbers, but these numbers are actual children. I know for us, we see numbers, right? Oh, it's a number, but behind every number is our children. So
Right.
I'm not understanding why we don't always strive for 100.
Okay, so what I can tell you is the plans are based on the ME's strategic plan. So they put out the plan and they put out what the provincial objective is going to be. From that, the EMSB sat down, pulled together data from the past, where we were at, where are we going, and we set targets based on that. And we set the target based on what the ministry's provincial goal is. So if you've, I don't know if you've noticed, the previous agreement was a partnership agreement. It started in 2008 and went to about 2018. And in that, they brought up. So they're looking to continue to increase to 100%.
Okay.
And all these reports are available publicly. If you look, the public rate has gone up considerably. Like, it's gone up a lot within the last 10, 15 years. So I believe eventually we will get to, or as close to 100% as we can get. I'll let you know right now, 92.5 is higher than we thought we were going to get last year. And it you know, there are little incremental differences, but every you know, little bit counts. That's a student who got their qualification, you know.
So
One of the things that helped us get there is the fact that we don't just look at the graduation, we also look at qualifications that come through first, like, you know, WOTP, semi-skilled, going on to vocational school. So those are the extra bits that are helping us get up there.
Okay, so I just have 2 more questions after that. My next question is, what happens to the 7.5% of the students who don't get a diploma? Like, what happens is when they reach the age of 20, or the special needs kids? I don't remember the amount. It went a little too fast for me to write it down, but like, what happens to those children?
So tracking for us goes from grade 7 to 11, and then we're looking at 11. They have 5 years to get their high school leaving. And then we give them 2 additional years to continue that education. And then beyond that, they can still go to adult ed. They can still get a qualification, but it's beyond our ability to track because we are the youth sector. So that's what we track.
Okay, and then my final question, and then I'll be quiet. You said something that was very interesting to me. You said schools from disadvantaged areas or advantaged areas. Can you please explain to me what constitutes advantage or disadvantaged?
Yeah, so that's not something that we assign here at EMSB. That is the provincial ranking that's given. Okay, it's called IMSE. You can look it up, and it's based on factors that it's the government. They will calculate it, and then they issue a listing. And based on that listing, we get additional funding. So you might be aware of something called NANS, that's New Approaches, New Solutions. It could be an allocation of funding goes to a disadvantaged school. And it's not that the school is in a disadvantaged area, it's that the students who attend come from postal codes that make up a disadvantaged area.
So what you're saying is I can go to a website and find, because I'm trying to understand, because it's very interesting to me in the current climate that we're in, what constitutes advantaged child and a disadvantaged child.
Mm-hmm.
So that I would be able to find that information.
Absolutely. You know,
so where do I look?
You're going to look up IMSE under Google.
Okay.
Quebec. It'll come up. I hope you read French, because a lot of it's in French. But you know what? Data is public, and we are a data-rich society. There's tons of stuff out there. So once they make this, it's based on this that they're going to now decide which schools receive additional funding. Okay, and that decision that's not a board decision. That's above us. They give the ranking, we follow through. So when we report on this, it's not that we're saying that this school is disadvantaged. No. The ranking was assigned for that year. And so we're just following through to report the results.
Thank you so much. Those were all my questions. Thank you.
I am very happy to answer your questions. Please feel free to ask, because, you know, data's all around us, and anything I can do to help you understand it, I want to do.
There are criteria that are, you know, that they look at. So mother's education, salary, types of jobs, all of those are looked at, and that's how they determine. So the criteria is based on what the ministry has decided, and that's how they determine which postal codes have more parents perhaps that have a high school leaving certificate versus a university degree, income. Those are all of the things that are looked at when they decide that that school is disadvantaged.
Okay.
So the next person on the speakers list is Jessica Woytuk. Jessica?
Good evening. Hi. Thanks for presenting. My only comment is it possible maybe somehow to acknowledge that it was kind of like a black swan year? Because with the target supposedly surpassed at 92.5, as well as the next stat, which was the spread between mainstream students and those with special needs, we've supposedly achieved the goal and surpassed it. But I think somewhere there needs to be an asterisk or something, or acknowledgement that it wasn't a regular academic year, because it will make surpassing these new numbers much more difficult in the forthcoming years.
For sure. If you'll notice, just in this is just a highlights presentation. This is not the actual report. So when you go into the report, it does say that COVID was an interruption in the year, and it changed the way that we evaluate. Therefore, we can't give you specific subject-specific results.
Right, just because that was said about, like you said, the more specific subjects, and it didn't then follow through with when the actual numbers were presented for the success rate of diploma and the success rate of the gap between special needs.
Those students still got their diplomas, right? We can talk about COVID, the fact that the year was interrupted and it affected the evaluation schedule, but students still received their diplomas. It did not stop them from receiving the diplomas. So all of the results that are there are the ones the ministry has said, these are the ones who have been successful.
Okay, thanks.
Next person is Daniel Tatone.
I did see the presentation, the full report. I was wondering if we can get a copy of the summarized. I like the way it was summarized in the PowerPoint. Would it be possible?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I was very happy to see the tapering of the gap between students at large and special needs. I am wondering if a lot of the other stats, did they include special needs students in the other stats?
Which other stats are you looking at? Because what we did was we pulled it out just for qualifications. We looked at special needs. When we look at subject specific, we don't do it for every single one, if that's what you're asking.
That answers my question. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
I don't see anybody on the speakers list.
There is a question in the chat from the parent from Roslyn. Hi. And Callie has a question, the parent from Bancroft.
Okay, there she is, yeah.
Ilan, do you want to ask your question or do you want us to read it for you?
That's it.
Okay,
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, just read it, Serena.
Under
Sorry,
note.
I was on mute. Sorry about that. Sorry, I apologize, everyone. I sort of look at the finance. I'm just curious, just for my own edification. The largest liability is over $280 million. So I'm just wondering what that was related to. I mean, it's probably not the most important thing during COVID, but I was just curious. It's such a huge amount. So I'm just wondering what that long-term debt was related to. So, just out of interest.
So I only do the academic stuff. If there's someone from admin who would like to jump in at this point, please feel free.
Yes, I will. Unfortunately, our Director of Financial Services is not with us tonight, but we'll take the question and we'll send you the answer very shortly.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we have Callie Kyriatzatsis. She has a question from Bancroft.
Hi, everyone. I am seeing many targets being achieved and exceeded, which is fantastic. But generally speaking, in the public sector, grades tend to be lower when we don't have, when ministry exams are administered. Since last year and this year, we won't be having ministry exams, and we didn't have ministry exams. What measures are being implemented to be proactive regarding maintaining our high success rate? Would you, is that like not a data question and therefore it's not directed to you?
I'm gonna try and then I will hand over to someone else. But here's my, like right away, I wanna let you know, it's consistent. If you look at the data leading up to where we are right now, it's consistent, okay? A lot of the boards are very close to each other, so I don't believe that next year we will have the highest success rate. We happen to have it this year. It goes down and up slightly, okay? What I do want to draw attention to, and this is not really what you asked me, but I think it might help give some feedback. Between 5 years and 7 years, grade 11 and that extra 2 years, we experience a big jump, as much as 8%, okay? It can go from 8 to 10%. So knowing that it's that much of a contribution, it really is important to the entire board to wait and look at the 7-year rate, not just the 5-year rate. When I first started doing this work, I kept thinking the 5-year rate is where it's at. But I realized that in Quebec, it doesn't work that way. We really do value those 2 extra years because we want to give students every opportunity to get those qualifications. That's what I can say. I'm going to throw to my director.
Thank you, Tracy. So as Tracy pointed out, you know, it does fluctuate up and down a little bit, but we have been consistent. It was a 0.5, I believe, jump. So it wasn't a huge jump, and I think we can certainly maintain it. But I agree with you that perhaps in 2 years' time, when students have not had an opportunity to sit down in a formal exam session, that, you know, nerves might kick in and that our scores might drop a little bit. But we will do everything that we can once we get to normal business to ensure that there's enough practice and enough preparation so that the students are successful. But I have to tell you that the teachers and the consultants have been doing an amazing job thus far, trying to keep up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next question comes from Michael from St. Gabriel's.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for taking your time. Just a quick question. I'd like to know, for the living environment, what was your minimum? What constitutes as a living environment, and what are you looking to achieve? Like, how high are you looking? Are we just looking at, okay, we have running water, we have electricity, that's a living environment. What are you looking at, and what's the current standard?
Before I throw to someone else that can answer this question better, I just want to let you know that the target was based on what the government asked for us to consider in reducing the FCI. So they gave us pretty much where they wanted our target to be. And then what happened was, before we wrote Commitment to Success, we collaborated and consulted with Material Resources. If you want, you can go and get the Commitment to Success plan and go into that section, and you'll be able to see where we were leading into this, okay? So the data, it's accumulated, and you can see a wider range of things. About the actual specific projects and what was done, I don't have that information, but it's possible that someone here does.
Yes, I can add to what Tracy just said. What we're doing is the major component on the buildings of the EMSB. And when I'm talking about major, is the roof, masonry, replacement of windows, etc., etc. And as you can see in the annual report, in 2018, the FCI was at 26.37, and in 2019, it's at 27.15. So there's an increase, and of course, our target is to reduce it by 2022 at 20%. Well, there's a simple explanation, and it's a hard one for our communities, but the reason is that when the government took away two of our schools, John Paul I and General Vanney, those two buildings were in good condition, and when they removed them from our Parc Immobilier, this is the result that we have. So basically, it's a result of those two decrees to take away those two buildings, but Material Resources is working hard, and we will improve our other buildings. So that's the specific reason why there's an increase in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was just wondering as well, is adding reduced mobility to our schools, is that part of this living environment to make sure that all of our schools are ready to accept students with reduced mobility?
Go ahead, Tracy, and I will add, yeah.
I just wanted to say that when the government set this target, they were talking mostly about infrastructure. And if you go back to around 2016, 2017, you'll see that that was when they started to announce that X amount millions of dollars have been given to schools because they were trying to fix up rural schools. I think that was really one of the focuses of that money in that time period. So as time goes on, we get to prioritize what's more for us, but a lot of this was already set out for us by the government.
Yeah, and if I can add, in terms of accessibility, there's a specific measures at the ministry. So when Material Resources is planning major projects to reduce the FCI, of course, the elements, the major components of buildings that I explained, of course, we look at, you know, accessibility ramps and all that, and it's being part of any project that we're doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we have Maria Corsi has a question.
So thank you very much for the presentation. In one of your first slides, you made a comparison between regular students and special needs students. Mm-hmm. Is the term regular students like a standard term to describe students at large?
Yeah, so this is a very good question. When we wrote the Commitment to Success plan back in 2016, 2017, that's when we started. The plan went into effect in 2018, and we used the ministry's documents to guide our language. So what they asked for was regular students and students with special needs, or we could do regular students and special needs students. We chose to go with students with special needs.
It's more
the regular
students.
Yeah.
I don't know, when I saw both terms there, I kind of felt a little, I
know.
winced.
Yeah,
I
me
winced,
too.
you know, because
When I wrote it, I
you
felt
say
that way
that
too.
special needs students are not regular students. So
Yes.
I don't know if there's a better way.
I'm so glad that you asked the question. Thank you so much for asking the question. This is one of the things that happens when they actually put out something. We have to use the same language. It's like formula writing. So that's why when you read Commitment to Success, it doesn't read like basically here's what we're going to do. It's formulaic. And you'll find we struggled also with the male female because they wanted us to look at the gaps between boys and girls. And we do have students who choose not to identify, who are gender fluid, et cetera, and this does not take them into consideration. We were kind of surprised that the province would ask us to look at this, but this is how they want to do it, and this is how they produce the data. When they send us the data, they send it as male, female, and they send it with students with special needs and regular students. So literally, we just translated the term, and I totally understand what you're saying, and I receive your feedback.
Is there a way to put, I don't know, maybe a footnote or something to sort of explain the term or soften the wincing? Sorry, I
hear you.
know,
At this
I
point,
understand your situation and that you have to use the language that is you know, expected. You know.
Things that get lost in translation, right?
Yes.
Because the plan was committed and it's already in action, we can't do anything about that right now.
Okay.
When we revise and when it comes up again, I will be back because I'll be doing the consultation with you the way that I did the first time round. So that'll be the time that we can address these things.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
The next parent.
Sorry, Tracy, I'm glad to hear that you will be back.
Oh, yeah. Guys, I'm planning to be here until 2030 for this because I've had the pleasure of being able to see the process of this plan being developed from 2018 onwards. And I think by the end of the partnership agreement, and that was what looked like MESA in all the schools, we really had a good understanding and grasp of where we were going data-wise. And it excites me to hear parents talking about data, interested in data, wanting to know more about the terms. So I look forward to this presentation every year. I've been saving this dress just for you. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me and listen.
So we have another parent, Anthony Zaruso.
Hi. My question is actually for Tracy. It goes back to when you were talking about the Material Resources Department and lowering your FCI. My question is, which I think it's a great thing that we're trying to do that. My question is somewhere in that, because it was a couple of years past, was the cost of finding a way to reduce the lead content in the water in our schools factored into that equation?
Yeah, so I know nothing about that because I handle academics, but I will turn it over to anyone in admin who wants to talk about it. Or if we want to, we can come back to it and make sure that you get the answer, but I don't have anything, unfortunately, from my end.
If so, are we being proactive or are we letting that sit on a shelf because of COVID? And if so, I don't think we should conflate the two. And I'll leave you guys with that.
Okay, so I have a Jessica Hood-Wojciak that added grad track or mainstream. Did you want to say something to that, Jessica? You added that in the chat, so I don't know if it was something you wanted to expand on.
It was just different terms that are usually more commonly accepted in the education field for quote unquote normal or regular students. So grad track or mainstream are the softer, less cringeworthy words, I guess.
Right. Okay.
I actually had a question. Since no one, well, no, actually I'll have somebody else say something because I'll add myself after her. Shalani Bell mentioned in psychology literature, we sometimes use neurotypical for regular to compare against those on the autism spectrum. So Shalani, would you like to speak to what you wrote in the chat?
Sure. I was just responding to Maria's question, like an alternative word for regular. I share her reaction to it. I didn't like seeing it, so I was making a suggestion. That's something that we use in educational psychology.
We can totally revisit this when we get back to the point of editing. At the time, we had to, we did the translation, and that's how it ended up that way. But I totally understand, and I hope that by then they've figured out something for the gender.
Maître Duhaime would like to answer Elon's question about Note 11. So, Maître Duhaime.
Thank you. Well, you know, I took the time to write to our Director of Finance Services and about the Note 11 for the long-term debt. She's explaining that it says there that the long-term debt of school boards on the island of Montreal is managed by the Comité de gestion de la taxe scolaire de l'île de Montréal, and it's really the long-term borrowing for financing the school board, and it's mainly for the capital projects. So it's the constructions and all that. That's the information I got. And if ever you need more details, it will be a pleasure to come back.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question coming back to the postal code that you were mentioning about the quartiers défavorisés. If we take the current context of Montreal and how the gentrification of many neighborhoods are expanding everywhere, you take Little Burgundy, you take Point St. Charles, you take some areas in Saint Laurent. Anyways, I can go on and on about neighborhoods, but there's an extreme gentrification. So you have some schools that have new families moving in because they're buying a house, they're tearing it apart, they're building it into a 3-story mansion next to apartment buildings. And I do know of many schools, especially in Commission Scolaire, well, it's not Commission Scolaire de l'Île de Montréal, but you know what I mean, that are losing their lunch programs, losing free access to daycare, losing many programs because of the gentrification of these neighborhoods. So I think the government really has to stand back a little bit and start looking at the socio-economic neighborhoods, not just the new families moving in and throwing in $500,000 on an old duplex, you know, so that's really affecting the families that are, you know, really the core of the neighborhood. So I think this is something that, you know, should be mentioned as well, because I do know these statuts d'école, they are changing in many neighborhoods, and children are losing out, families are losing out big time because they don't have access to these fundings anymore. They're being cut left and right. That's a big issue.
For sure. I totally hear what you're saying. We see schools change on that index. They are at this one year and then they change to the next year. But this is something that's assigned above us. This is not something that we can reflect in our report. It's assigned before. So basically we're just taking the data as they provide it and reporting on what we've done with it. That's all that I can do with this report. I think the change has to happen at a higher level, because it's how they calculate the index and whether or not they will have the awareness of what's going on. That's the best that I can do in terms of answering.
Thank you.
If I may add to that, we do see that in our school board as well. That EMSB does change from school to school. When we look at our budgets and when we send our budgets to prepare budgets for the schools, we take into consideration the loss from one year to another. Some schools may lose a great amount of money. So what we usually do is because we're able to be, we're flexible with the Missouri monies that do come in, we try to compensate a portion of that loss for the year. And sometimes it's a gradual loss for the school and not a drastic. Sometimes we see, you know, a loss of $40,000, $50,000. And for a school, that amount of money is quite significant. So we do make sure that the loss is gradual and it's not, doesn't impact the students greatly from year to year.
Okay, well, thank you, Tracy, for taking the time to do that presentation for us and trying your best to answer all of our questions.
If I can just add, if I may.
Sure.
With regards to the question that was just asked with regards to the sectors and the way it's calculated, the Comité de Gestion de la Taxe uses census information, and that information is used, is accumulated every 5 years. And I invite the ones that are interested to go on the Comité de Gestion de la Taxe website, where you will see la carte de défavorisation. The latest version is 2018, and it'll show you exactly how the areas are calculated and how it's allotted and so forth. It's well explained, so that can maybe complement to some of the questions that were raised before.
Thank you for that.
No worries.
Agostino. Okay. Again, thank you, Tracy, for coming in to present this and everyone who participated. There was a parent that asked a question about lead pipes, I think, that we weren't able to answer. Someone, please get back to us when you can. Other than that, thank you.
I had a question. Sorry, Madam Chair. I had a question. So we were presented the annual report, but in the annual report there was also the financial statement aspect. Are we going to take a look at that, or that's going to be tabled since the person responsible is not available to go through that? Is that going to be done later on at some point, or?
I'm not sure. I know that my academic portion is over and I will be saying farewell.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No, but if you'll permit me, Commissioner Esperanza, the Assistant Director General of Administration is here. I'm here. We had not intended to return to the financial statements part of this. And if you had questions, I think we've succeeded in answering many of them. But if you had more specific ones, yeah, go ahead. And if we can't answer them, we'll get back to you.
I know this is going out to parents and they're looking at this for the first time. And it looks like that the EMSB is in a deficit position. I just wanted to just explain the mechanism of our surplus, because we took from the surplus to cover the deficit. So how does that work? Because if we look at the surplus, it looks like we have a lot of money for a lot of projects. But some questions that have come up in the past is, why aren't we using that accumulated surplus? So just if we can give a recap to explain that we're capped at a certain point. We can't begin to the, and what kind of authorization is required to go into that accumulated surplus? Because looking at this, if I was in an area where, wow, we could use a new school, we got $82 million, why aren't we using it?
Yeah, so the answer
happened in the past.
Yeah, so the answer is easy, Commissioner. School boards are authorized to use up to 15% of their accumulated adjusted surplus on an annual basis. And you're right, for 2019-2020, I think the maximum was used. The maximum was used to essentially balance the budget and to go beyond the allowable 15%. You need written authorization from the Ministry of Education to go beyond that. And that written authorization to go beyond the 15% maximum allowable is very, very hard to come by.
Thank you, because in the past, there's questions where parents looked at that and say, hey, we could build a new school. So just to explain the mechanisms. Thank you very much, Mr. Copeman.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Copeman, for answering that. We have to move on from this subject because we only allocated 45 minutes and we have run out of time. So thank you again, Tracy, for stopping by and giving us that presentation. You are more than welcome to stay if you'd like.